Joining me now to look at the legal implications is Paul Ramara, his partner, Spoor Fisher. Thank you, Paul, for the time. How big is this a problem?
It's a huge problem. Unfortunately, we do not have consolidated statistics from the relevant government agencies that assist in the fight against counterfeiting, but we know globally it accounts for between 5 to 7% of the world trade, and it's a $200 billion business.
It's huge.
It's huge.
Now, when you think about South Africa and its structure of the formal economy and non-formal economy, you'd have to think this should be predominantly within the informal economy rather than in our formal economy. Would I be right?
Partly, but it affects all industries. You see, the problem that we sometimes make is to assume that counterfeiting is only confined to clothing. But we've had instances where we have actually raided big, automotive parts dealers.
Oh, really?
And even some pharmaceuticals that are offering for sale fake medicines.
Sure. And now we are seeing it extend into food.
It has always been there.
Has it?
It has always been there, but perhaps at the lower scale. But we are very happy that a spotlight is now being shined on this problem. Yeah. Because as I said earlier, the impression that is always created is that it's confined to clothing, but it's far bigger and far wider. Yeah. All industries are affected by counterfeiting.
Yeah. The cynic in me would say, those who buy counterfeit goods are not thinking properly because, they are buying things that they know are not real. But how easy is it to tell counterfeit versus real? Like, I'm assuming this is an HP, right? Right?
Yes, of course. It is a little bit technical. I must say, when it started, when counterfeiting started in the 80s, it was easy to tell. But what counterfeiters now is to get closer and closer in terms of the look to an original product. But what is in the product, that is where the problem is. That they do not get right. The important thing for them is just to deceive you to just make the purchase, and from there it's your own issue to deal with.
In South Africa, what is the issue here? Is it imported fake goods, or are we talking about manufacturers who are actively outside of the law producing stuff that is landing up on South African shelves and markets?
So it's both, but the biggest manufacturers of counterfeit goods globally is Asia, particularly China. They account for between 60 to 70% of all goods that we find in any country.
Right.
And then, of course, you do find that there's other mini factories that have been set up in South Africa to sell counterfeit goods. We've seen laboratories which we've closed. Yeah. Even for drugs, I'm sure you've read the news.
Yes. Yeah, people who do this in their backyard.
Yes, so they do get to that level as well.
Yeah, and in terms of the dominance, would you say that there is more counterfeiting in clothes than there is in food? Because, for the benefit of those who would not have heard about this in South Africa, we had those riots through the week as a result of people saying informal traders, in particular the spaza shop owners, are selling expired and counterfeit products.
Clothing and accessories, that's definitely
the big business.
That's the big business. That's where we have the most problem. With food, it's a little bit controlled. Of course, there are instances where there are such issues, and indeed there might be bigger issues because, as I said, we don't have the statistics. Right. But to answer your question, clothing is the biggest counterfeited product.
Yeah, we often hear tobacco as well.
Tobacco as well.
How big an issue is that?
Well, for tobacco, they're dealing with illicit goods. They do not have much of a problem with counterfeit goods. They have a problem more with illicit. As you know,
Help me. When you say illicit, what would be the difference between illicit and counterfeit? I'm thinking both are illegal, right?
Yes, both are illegal. So with counterfeit goods, it's counterfeit goods that from a brand holder bearing that particular brand holder's trademark. With illicit goods or illicit cigarette, we're talking about cigarettes that have come into the country illegally. And they are the people behind the manufacturing of those illicit cigarettes have not paid the proper duties to customs. Therefore, they can sell them at a much lower price.
Yeah. So part of the problem we're dealing with here is policing by, obviously, the customs authority in terms of making sure that this stuff doesn't cross our borders at the customs points or, indeed, on undesignated points. And also, once it's inside, the inspectorate for departments such as the Department of Health that look at the food sector?
Yes, most definitely. So you have the Department of Customs playing a critical role in terms of everything that is being imported into the country.
Yeah.
But if you take Durban, for instance, Durban clears over 2,000 containers a day, and only 5% of those containers are stopped for checking.
So don't say that loudly.
Yeah, yeah. So
just 5%?
5%.
Wow.
It's very difficult, you know, because customs, on the other hand, they've got a duty to facilitate state. They can't stop all the containers because some of them obviously contain, you know, lawful goods. And for that reason, there's a bit of a challenge.
But Paul, my uneducated mind says to me, come on, pour more resources and make sure that the stuff that's coming in is all legal. Don't let any stuff inside the country that is not legal. It's practical? It's
easier said than done. There are, of course, issues on the ground, issues of manpower, which comes into play. But of course, I think SARS can improve, and indeed the government agencies can also improve.
Is that the global standard, 5%?
No, it's not really the global standard. I wouldn't know about the other countries, but I do know that we do have challenges. You must also remember that the Durban port also is responsible for goods being imported to our neighboring countries.
Yes.
You know, so it's used by other countries as well.
But Paul, in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, if you've got a problem such as this, you're only able to inspect 5%. You have unemployment of about 36, 37%. Come on, employ more people and put them there and let them work, instead of allowing stuff that should not be in the country to come in, because not only are you losing on revenue, but now you're endangering the people who are inside the country. And of course, you are stealing jobs, because those imports, those illegal imports, are taking jobs out of South Africa. I am no genius, but come on. They've got to sort it out.
Of course, I think you make a very valid point, and I wish the finance minister and even the commissioner of SARS can hear that.
I'm going to pick up the phone. My producer, please put the call through to the Minister of Finance and tell him I've got some ideas around trying to fix this. Paul, thank you.
Thank you for me.
Paul Ramara is a partner at Spoor Fisher.